I still remember the sound of the rain that night. It wasn't just water hitting pavement. It felt like the world itself was trying to drown me. I stood outside the church, suit soaked, holding a gift I wasn't allowed to give. My sister was getting married. Everyone in my family was inside laughing, celebrating. Everyone but me. My name is Ryan Walker. I'm 35 years old. I live in Austin, Texas, and I run a successful tech company now. But just 3 years ago, I was sleeping on a friend's couch with $27 in my bank account and a message on my phone that read, "Don't come to the wedding. You're not part of this family anymore." That message was from my mother, and if that sounds cold to you, trust me, it felt even worse reading it. I wasn't a criminal. I didn't hurt anyone. I didn't betray anyone. My only crime was that I refused to follow the path they laid out for me. You see, I come from a perfect family. Big house, fancy dinners, smiling holiday cards. From the outside, we looked like the American dream. But inside those walls, everything was about control, about reputation, about obedience. My father ran a family business, real estate. He expected all of us to work for him, wear suits, say yes, and never question a thing. My older sister did exactly that. So did my younger brother. But me, I had a different dream. I wanted to build something of my own, a tech startup. I believed I could make a difference, create something that mattered. They laughed, said I was stupid, said I was embarrassing the family. My dad told me, "You either wear our name with pride or you leave it behind." So I left. I thought time would heal things, that they would eventually understand. But instead, they cut me off. No calls, no support, no invites. Not even when I hit rock bottom. Not even when I was one step away from living in my car. And then the wedding came. I didn't ask to come. I didn't beg. I just sent a small message. "I'd like to be there. For her, not for you." And that's when my mom replied, "Please don't show up, Ryan. You'll ruin everything." That's when I realized I wasn't just forgotten, I was erased. But here's the thing about being erased. It gives you the freedom to rewrite everything. They thought I'd disappear forever, that I'd drown in failure and fade away. But they didn't know me. I didn't disappear. I disappeared just long enough to build an empire. Before everything fell apart, before the silence, the disownment, the betrayal, I actually thought my family loved me. Crazy, right? Growing up, we had it all. Big white house on the corner lot, backyard pool, family photos lined up in perfect rows. People used to call us the Walkers of Westlake. My dad was a local legend, the kind of man who built an empire from nothing. Charismatic, ruthless, untouchable. He demanded excellence, and for a while I tried to give it. I was the middle child, not the golden firstborn like my sister, not the baby boy like my younger brother. Just Ryan. Quiet, curious, always in my room tinkering with broken radios, computers, old wires from the garage. I used to take things apart just to understand how they worked. My dad hated that, said it was a waste of time. He'd say, "You want to impress me? Learn how to close a deal, not how to fix a toaster." But Mom, she was different. At least I thought she was. She'd bring me lemonade while I worked on my little projects. She'd smile at my clunky robot that couldn't walk straight. She even came to my high school science fair once, just once, and told me she was proud. That moment stayed with me. I clung to it like proof. Proof that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't invisible. College was my first taste of freedom. I studied computer engineering, got an internship at a startup, and for the first time, I felt like I belonged somewhere. My ideas weren't weird. They were valuable. My voice mattered. I remember coming home one summer, excited to share everything. I told Dad about this app we were building. It was messy, full of bugs, but it was mine. I talked about user growth, traction, early adopters. He cut me off. "Apps are for kids. Real men sell property." The conversation ended with him sliding a brochure across the table, a job offer. He'd already set it up with one of his clients. All I had to do was say yes. I didn't. And that's when things started to change. The dinners got quieter. My sister started looking at me like I was a stranger. My little brother copied Dad's tone, condescending, dismissive. but I still believed they'd come around. When my startup failed, as most do, I didn't ask for help. I worked the nights at a gas station. I freelanced. I scraped together every dollar to build again. Mom called once during that time. Just once. She said, "Your father's very disappointed. He's embarrassed. Maybe if you apologized." But I hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't hurt anyone. All I did was chase something different. So I stopped calling. I stopped showing up to birthday dinners where I didn't feel welcome. I focused on building a second version of my product, leaner, smarter. I brought on a friend as co-founder. We pitched to investors, got rejected. Then one day, we didn't. We landed $250,000 in seed funding. It wasn't a miracle. It was sweat, tears, and persistence. I wanted to share it with someone, anyone. But my phone was silent. No one asked how I was doing. No one knew I'd gone 3 days without sleep, eating noodles while writing code. No one cared that I was finally standing on my own. And then came the wedding. My sister, the golden child, marrying the son of one of Dad's business partners. A grand event, white roses, designer suits, 5-star catering, and no seat for me. I found out through Facebook. No call, no invite, not even a "Hey, we hope you're doing well." I sent that text to Mom anyway. Maybe out of hope, maybe just to say I tried. "I'd like to be there, for her, not for you." Her reply was simple. "Please don't show up. You'll ruin everything." And that's when the curtain finally dropped. The life I thought I had never existed. I wasn't the black sheep. I was the scapegoat, the one they could blame when things didn't look perfect, the one they could cut off without guilt. I stood outside that church that night not because I hoped to be welcomed, but because I needed to see it with my own eyes. The laughter, the hugs, the carefully curated smiles, and not one person turned around to look for me. I walked away from that church drenched in rain, gifts still in my hands, heart heavier than ever. But I didn't cry, because somewhere deep inside, a switch flipped. I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't need their name. All I needed was a plan. After that night outside the church, something in me changed. I didn't confront them. I didn't send another message. I didn't ran online or call to scream. I went quiet. And when I go quiet, I start watching. It's funny how people assume silence means weakness. Like if you're not shouting, you must be fine. I wasn't fine. I just started paying attention. I began noticing patterns, little things, like how Mom would post these carefully posed family photos. Everyone lined up perfectly, champagne glasses in hand, and yet I was always cropped out, even in old ones, edited like I'd never existed. My sister once posted a throwback photo from childhood. I was in the original, but somehow in hers I was gone, cropped out like a stain on a white shirt. It stung more than I expected. Then there were the calls, or rather the ones I didn't get. No one told me my uncle had passed. No one mentioned my cousin's engagement. I found out through mutual friends who assumed I was still part of the fold. I wasn't. They'd erased me so cleanly, it was like they rehearsed it. But I wasn't just sulking in a corner. I was building my life in the background. The startup, it grew. We got our first major client, then another. Suddenly, I was in boardrooms with people who used to ignore my emails. The company grew fast, maybe too fast, but I kept going. Success didn't heal the wound, but it sharpened my focus. And then came the moment that made my blood run cold. One evening, I was on a Zoom call with an investor when I saw a name pop up in the waiting room. Lawrence Walker. My father. I froze. It had been over 3 years since we last spoke. Why would he try to contact me? And through business. I ended the call and tried to breathe. Then the email started. First 1, then 3, then 7. Each one polite, almost rehearsed. "Son, I've been watching what you built. Impressive work. Let's talk. We may be able to help each other. I regret how things ended. Let's reconnect." It was like watching a wolf dress itself in sheep's clothing. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I did what I always do. I dug. I started researching, looking into his real estate empire, tracking his recent deals, combing through public filings. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew one thing. He never reached out without an agenda. And I was right. 3 days later, I received a legal notice. Apparently, my name had been used, without my consent, in a corporate filing 2 years earlier. Some shady shell company tied to one of his real estate ventures. My signature had been forged. Suddenly, I understood why he wanted to reconnect. This wasn't about love, it was about liability. He needed my silence, my signature, maybe even a scapegoat if things went sideways. That's when I started recording everything. Phone calls, voicemails, emails, even silent moments where I'd talk out loud, recounting events into a secure recorder. And then, my mother called. Her voice was soft, familiar, practiced. "Ryan, your father's not well. He's been under stress. He wants to make things right." I asked her point blank, "Did you know he forged my name?" She didn't deny it. She didn't confirm it either, just silence. And then, "It's complicated, sweetheart. Families do things to protect each other." Protect? That word hit different, because all they'd ever done was protect themselves. Their image, their status, their empire. And I was disposable, just a line on a balance sheet, a pawn. That night I sat alone in my apartment, walls bare, dishes still in the sink, old hoodie clinging to my skin like dust. And I felt the kind of stillness that doesn't calm you. It haunts you. But I didn't break. I just stared at my laptop screen, the email from their lawyer open and blinking. And I whispered something under my breath. They think I'm still that quiet kid who never fought back. But I wasn't. Not anymore. I didn't reply that night, or the next. I started reading every legal clause, learning everything about identity theft, forgery, and corporate fraud. I spoke to attorneys in secret, hired a friend to run a digital trail. We found documents, IP addresses, timestamps. They'd buried me in silence. Now I was going to bury them in truth. And through it all, I stayed calm. No drama, no posts, no threats, just focus. And that's what scared them the most. You'd think the final blow would be loud, some big dramatic betrayal with shouting and chaos, but it wasn't. It was a PDF, just a quiet file, sitting in my inbox at 3:12 a.m. No subject line, no message, just a name, Walker Holdings, agreement, final.pdf. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. It looked like a standard business agreement at first. Then I saw my name, Ryan Walker, silent partner. And right beneath it, my signature. Perfect, precise. But I never signed it. I scrolled faster. There were terms attached to loans I didn't take, clauses that connected me to tax documents, bank accounts, offshore holdings. If this went public, or worse, legal, I'd be the fall guy. And then I saw the date, 2 years ago. Right after they kicked me out. They'd planned this. I wasn't just disowned, I was repurposed. They'd cut me loose, but kept my identity, used it like a mask. That's when I snapped. Not with rage, not with screaming. I snapped quietly, in the way a soldier does when he stops believing he's going home. That deep, irreversible click inside the soul. No more denial, no more hoping they'd change, no more waiting for apologies that would never come. Just clarity. I didn't cry that night. I didn't call anyone. I didn't reply. I started planning. I opened a fresh notebook. Page 1. I wrote 2 words in bold, burn clean. This wasn't going to be a messy revenge. I wasn't going to fight fire with fire. I was going to freeze it. Cold, precise, untraceable until it was too late. I spent the next few days like a ghost. Still, silent, but everywhere. I started collecting paper trails, digging through contracts, emails, voicemail backups, legal filings. I hired a private digital investigator. Then I bought a second phone, a different laptop, a VPN, encrypted cloud storage. I even rented a small co-working office under a different name, just so I could research and prepare without ever touching my home internet. I made a copy of the forged signature, sent it to a handwriting analyst I found in Arizona, paid him double for silence and speed. I contacted an attorney, one who specialized in corporate whistleblowing. Didn't tell her everything, just enough. And slowly, piece by piece, I started pulling the thread, and the whole thing began to unravel. The deeper I went, the more I found. It wasn't just one forgery, it was a network. They'd used my identity across multiple dummy corporations, shell businesses, real estate flips that never existed, loans taken under my name, paid back with ghost money, signed off by board members who didn't know I was never at the table. It was so clean, it was almost brilliant. Almost. But they made one mistake. They underestimated the son they buried. They forgot I had nothing left to lose. And when someone has nothing left to lose, they're dangerous. Very dangerous. And the thing that hit me the hardest, they didn't even hide it. I found an email thread between my father and his CFO. It read, "Ryan won't push back. He's soft, emotional. If anything happens, he'll fold." I must have read that line 10 times. He'll fold. That's when something settled in me. A stillness, a cold determination I hadn't felt since I was a teenager, standing alone in the rain outside that church. He thought I'd fold. He had no idea. This wasn't just going to be a fight. This was going to be a reckoning. I wasn't going to fight them the way they expected. There would be no dramatic confrontations, no screaming matches or late-night threats. That would only make them stronger. I needed to become invisible, silent, a shadow walking behind their every step. So I vanished, not physically, but emotionally. I stopped answering calls, stopped reacting, smiled during family video calls, said nothing. I let them believe they'd broken me. And in that silence, I started building. Step 1, proof. Every revenge story worth finishing starts with evidence. Solid, clean, irrefutable. So I hired a forensic accountant under a different name, using a referral from a man I met once during jury duty. Said I was doing background checks before investing in a property. Paid him in cash. He didn't ask questions. What he found was gold. Fake board meetings, empty transactions, signatures scanned and reused from old birthday cards. All traced back to one central folder on a shared family business drive that had somehow never changed its password. They didn't even think I was smart enough to look there. And maybe years ago they were right, but I wasn't the same Ryan anymore. Step 2, legal armor. I reached out to a whistleblower attorney in New York. Top-rated, ruthless, the kind of woman who wins cases before they ever see a courtroom. Her name was Clara Monroe. The moment I sat down across from her and slid the file across the table, she looked at me with narrowed eyes. "You do know if this is real? We're not just talking about lawsuits," she said. "This is federal." I nodded once. "Well, that's the point." We signed the agreement. Everything confidential, every step careful. Clara started building the civil side, contacting agencies, preparing cease and desist orders, flagging fraudulent documents. She warned me to stay quiet, to not make sudden moves. And I agreed. But in my head, the war had already begun. Step 3, the final trigger. You see, revenge, real revenge, isn't about shouting, "I told you so." It's about letting your enemies walk themselves into the fire, blindfolded, thinking they're kings. So I started pushing gently. I accidentally left a flash drive at my brother's house. Nothing on it, just the folder name, Walker Holdings 2019-audit ready. 2 days later, he texted me, "Everything okay?" I didn't reply. 3 hours later, my mother called. "Your father's worried about you. He said you've been acting distant lately." I smiled as I stared at the phone. Distant? Number I was getting closer than I'd ever been. They felt it, like animals sensing a shift in the wind before a storm. And the truth is, I wanted them to feel it, just a little. Not enough to make them run, just enough to make them sweat. Step 4, allies. I reached out to my old college roommate, Evan. He was now an investigative journalist working for a podcast network focused on white-collar crime. I didn't give him names, just a teaser. Ever wanted to dig into a multi-million-dollar shell company fraud tied to a fake partner? His ears perked up. I handed him a burner email, told him to wait. Once it's safe, I said, I'll deliver everything. Step 5, the silence before impact. Weeks passed. Everything looked normal on the surface. Family barbecues, text chains about sports. My father even forwarded me a church newsletter like he used to do when I was a teenager, trying to pretend nothing had ever happened. They were calm. They thought they were safe. They had no idea I was preparing to flip the world beneath them. Every night I reviewed my files. Every morning, Clara updated me on which agencies were watching. The IRS, the SEC. Even the Department of Justice had pinged our submission as potentially actionable. I didn't feel joy, just purpose. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about justice. They had taken my name, my dignity, my place in the family. Now I was going to take away their comfort, their power, their illusion. Then, finally, the last domino fell. My father scheduled a board meeting, virtual like always. I was included, probably out of habit. I accepted. But this time I was ready, not just with facts, with fire. I had the documents, the timeline, the analyst reports, the confirmation from the DOJ that they'd launched an inquiry. Silent, sealed. This was it. The match had been lit, and they were standing in a room soaked in gasoline. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I just smiled into the webcam, waited for my father to finish his long speech about family legacy, and then calmly said, "Actually, there's something I'd like to share with the board." And then I clicked share screen. There was a moment of silence right after I clicked share screen. A flicker on everyone's faces. Confusion. Then discomfort. Then panic. On the screen appeared a single folder, labeled clearly, Walker Holdings Financial Discrepancies, Full Audit Package. And under it, subfolders, fake invoices, loop transactions, forged signatures, unreported income streams. No music, no drama, just documents, dozens of them, scanned, labeled, time-stamped. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't smile, I just spoke. Over the past year, I've been quietly reviewing our family business practices, and what I've found is disturbing. This company and everyone involved in these files is under active investigation by the Department of Justice, the IRS, and the SEC. I let that sink in. My brother's face drained of color. My mother froze. And my father, the man who once said I'd never survive without him, leaned back in his chair like the air had been sucked out of the room. "You can't be serious," he muttered, but I was, and I wasn't done. I opened the first folder. It showed a paper trail of forged payments made to a consultant, someone who didn't exist. That money, cashed through a dummy account registered to an address my brother once used for a fake college application. My voice stayed calm. "This document was submitted as part of your 2020 tax filings. You signed it. Here's the confirmation." Click in Next File. A signed agreement between my father and a construction partner, except the signature was scanned from a birthday card I'd received 10 years ago. I showed the comparison, side by side. It's the exact same stroke, same resolution. You didn't even change the DPI. My father's jaw tightened. "You think anyone's going to believe you?" I paused, then spoke the words I'd been holding back for months. "I don't need them to believe me. I have the truth." And then I played the audio. It was a recording from a casual dinner at my brother's house, taken months earlier. I'd left my phone in my jacket pocket, recording the whole conversation. In the clip, you hear him laughing with my father. "Ryan, he's too soft. He still thinks we're a family, but he's just a placeholder. Always has been." Then my mother softly in the background. "As long as he keeps his mouth shut, he can keep his little shares. Just don't tell him what's really happening." Silence in the board meeting. Dead silence. I let the moment hang, and then I ended screen share. My lawyer Clara had already filed a motion to freeze assets pending investigation. She sent the confirmation to the group chat right then and there. One by one, bank accounts went dark. One by one, agency letters arrived. One by one, the walls began to collapse. 2 weeks later, my father was served at his golf club, right in front of his friends. My brother lost his consulting license after an anonymous tip reached the board. My mother, well, she called me crying. I didn't answer. Instead, I sent a single reply. You chose them. You made your decision. Now you get to live with it. I wasn't cruel. I didn't scream. I didn't sabotage anything illegal. I just made sure the truth came out. That the world could see what they did. Behind the curtains, behind the smiles, behind the family man mask they all wore so well. And the best part? I never had to lift a single weapon. I just told the truth, louder. My story went viral after Evan, my old roommate, aired the podcast episode. Title, The Family Business, How One Son Took Down $1 Million Lie. It trended for 3 days. I didn't ask for sympathy. I didn't ask for fame. I just wanted closure. I got it, in full. And now comes the part they'll never understand. It's been 11 months since that meeting, and I haven't stepped foot in that house again. The same house where I spent Christmas mornings in my pajamas, where I learned to ride a bike in the driveway, where I once believed family meant something. It's all behind me now. The lawsuits are still moving, slowly. My father hired a team of lawyers, but nothing can erase what was recorded, documented, and broadcast. My brother tried to start a new business. No one backed it. My mother sent me letters, long ones. I never opened them. Because the truth is, I don't need an apology. I don't want closure from them. I gave that to myself. These days, I wake up in a small but peaceful place outside Asheville. No skyscrapers, no luxury cars, just quiet, honest quiet. I work with veterans now, helping them transition back into civilian life. People who've seen real pain, real sacrifice. People who know that loyalty isn't a contract, it's a bond. I tell them my story sometimes, not for sympathy, but to show them that even when it's your own blood that turns against you, you can still choose to rebuild. You can still choose you. I used to think revenge meant making them pay, but it doesn't. Real revenge, the kind that hurts the people who never thought you'd rise, it's this: living well, walking away without looking back, and never needing them again. I don't care if they regret it. I don't care if they cry behind closed doors, because I remember the night I packed my bags and walked out of that house with nothing but a suitcase and a folder of documents. And I remember the peace I felt. Not anger, not pain, just clarity. They disowned me, but I reclaimed myself. Dumb. I built a life without lies, without betrayal, without fake smiles across fancy tables. I live simply now. Coffee in the mornings, books in the evening, real friends. A dog named Murphy who thinks I'm the greatest man alive and never once lied about it. To anyone watching this, maybe you've been betrayed too. Maybe by a lover, a friend, or like me, by the very people who raised you. Let me tell you something they'll never teach you in therapy. You don't need them to say sorry. You don't need them to feel your pain. You just need to decide one thing. Are you going to stay broken, or are you going to rebuild from the ashes they left behind? Because if you do, if you rebuild quietly, steadily, truthfully, you win. Not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. They disowned me, but they never destroyed me. And from that silence, I rose. If this story moved you, subscribe. More true stories are coming. Real voices, real scars, real revenge.